Hello, everyone. This is the first recording of Early Stoic Philosophy, a class on Stoic logic, physics, and ethics. And I want to begin with a topical introduction to Stoic ethics on the so-called unity of the virtues. The unity of the virtues is a claim or premise or proposal which says that virtue is one or virtue is a unit. And in somewhat more technical terms, this is often expressed by saying that if an agent has one virtue, she has all of them. And that formulation then is typically described in terms of interentailment, that the virtues entail each other. Now, in that version, in the interentailment version of the unity of the virtues that talks about an agent, all the major ancient ethicists accept the unity of the virtues. Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics accepted, they all accepted in their own version, and our recording is about the distinctively Stoic version of the claim. Now, before I talk about that, I want to just kind of give a little bit of background about why that is the claim that I want us to focus on first. In the 20th century revival of interest in ancient ethics, that was one of the ideas that stood out to people as possibly an intuition or a premise where the ancients are onto something. In a paper published in 1979, John McDowell argued that initially it may seem to us as if it is a really extreme idea. Why should it be the case that if an agent has one of the virtues, she has all of them? Wouldn't it seem that typically we talk about particular virtues? For example, we say he is moderate or we say she is wise. And we don't take ourselves then to imply that such a person also has the other virtues. So he was arguing that initially it may seem like a far-fetched, radical, perhaps even, completely implausible proposal, but it is also significant or surprising maybe that it comes up in Plato, in Aristotle, in the Stoics, and they seem to find it really important. So if we are going to be interested in virtue ethics and whether there are any resources in virtue ethics for our own theorizing in ethics today, it is an idea that we should be studying. The texts that we are reading about the Stoics, you were looking at fragments in chapter 61 of the Long and Sedley edition of Fragments. One of these texts gives a quite precise report, and that is what I want to focus on right now. It's a report from Plutarch, and Plutarch says, well, the Stoics not only accept that if an agent has one of the virtues, she has all of them, they also hold that if an action is performed in agreement with one of the virtues, then this action is in agreement with all of the virtues. And I just sort of want to assign labels to these two claims to help us better think about them. So you may think that the first claim could be called agent interentailment. If an agent has one of the virtues, she has all of them. And the second claim could be called action interentailment. If an action is in agreement with one of the virtues, it is in agreement with all of them. And Plutarch seems to find it quite remarkable that the Stoics hold both of these claims, and it is quite possible that it would be true to say that Plato and Aristotle accept the first claim, agent interentailment, and not the second. But that is debatable. That is just sort of something where I want to invite you to think about it. Now, before I say a little bit more about these two proposals, just a word about Plutarch. When you read the fragments, when you read the bits of reports, the snippets in the Long and Sedley edition, it is kind of good practice to look at who is the author, and sometimes also look at what is the text or the book or the treatise that a given bit of text comes from. So here the author is Plutarch. Plutarch is a Platonist. And that means we can expect that he is sort of in general not in agreement with the Stoics, rather quite strongly in disagreement with them. So we can expect that he is sort of presenting this from a critical point of view. Moreover, the title of the treatise from which this extract comes is On Stoic Self-Contradictions. So that should raise a flag. So here is an author, Plutarch, who is not, he's not a historian of philosophy. He's not interested in giving you a kind of charitable interpretation or reconstruction of something. Rather, he wants you to see, his reader to see, that the Stoics contradict themselves. And if you were to go back and read a little bit of Plutarch's treatise on Stoic self-contradictions, you would see that he is thereby, in some sense, an excellent source for us. Because since he wants you to see that they contradict themselves, he gives us quite a few quotes or paraphrases that seem kind of close to a verbatim paraphrase. So it is a lot of information. At the same time, he is putting things together in a way that sort of is intended to make the reader think the Stoics are crazy. They are contradicting themselves on so many issues. So that should sort of be in the back of your mind when you assess a fragment like this. Now, in our given case, the good thing here is that he's kind of likely to give us a precise formulation. And that makes it worthwhile to take it seriously and really think about it in some detail. But he's also sort of, maybe pinpointing where one could disagree, where the fault lines lie. And that makes it even more worthwhile to really think about these two versions of the unity of the virtues. And I want to conclude this recording just by inviting you to think a bit about what they both amount to, the agent version and the action version. That distinction has not yet been picked up in the scholarship, neither in today's discussions in virtue ethics, nor in the study of ancient philosophy. So you would be, thinking about something where there's not a lot of scholarly work to help you think about it. But one bit of reflection that seems to be invited here is that if the unity of the virtues is about an agent, it is about the agent's as a total mental state, about the agent's psychology. And for example, that might mean that someone could not be, let's say, just have the virtue of justice if they were not also moderate, because maybe if someone is immoderate, they always kind of want more than their share. And if you always want more than your share, then maybe it is really hard to develop the attitudes of justice. So now we are talking about the virtues as they interact in someone's psychology. But then if you ask yourself, how would you spell out the action version of the unity of the virtues? That is sort of harder, because maybe we tend to think about the virtues kind of almost always in terms of motivations, and not so much just in terms of the action that is being performed. But maybe you could think, well, an action is paradigmatically courageous if someone saves other people who are in danger. And then you could ask yourself, what would it mean for that action to also be in agreement, let's say, with justice? And maybe the action is in agreement with justice because those who are being saved have maybe different claims to being saved, and it is a matter of justice to figure out who ought to be saved first. And if the person who is courageous saves first those who are, by justice, entitled to being saved first, then the action is also in agreement with justice. But you can see that it is kind of harder to spell out the second claim. And that is kind of where I want to leave this. I would like to invite you to think more about what is it on top of the agent version of the unity of the virtues that the Stoics endorse.